Welcome to this course of Introduction to Semiconductor Devices. I am Naresh Imani. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Electrical Engineering at IIT Hyderabad, and it is my privilege to offer this course on the NPTEL platform. So this course is intended to give you the fundamentals of semiconductor devices. It will help you appreciate how the semiconductor devices work. And to do that, we have to understand the background. So if we look at the world around us, we see that semiconductor devices are everywhere. They are there in the smallest of gadgets, like in your cell phones, to airplanes and satellites and so on. So they are all pervasive and they essentially power the modern scientific revolution. And this story has been one of the greatest stories of technological achievements in the last century. So, how does this happen? So, the roots of the story are in the 1940s when one of the first computing devices was built, which was called as ENIAC. It is essentially electronic numerical integrator and calculator. So, this was a device which was made out of vacuum tubes, which were the predecessors of the modern MOSFETs. And these vacuum tubes were connected and then to create logic functions. So, you see one picture of ENIAC here, wherein these tubes were connected and you have circuits which are encompassing an entire room and there were people programming these devices. In terms of computational capability, this ENIAC was not very powerful and it was also not very reliable and also not power efficient. So quickly scientists realized that there is a need to invent a solid state alternative to a vacuum tube. And this quest for a solid state alternative ended when in the year 1948, a team consisting of Shockley, Bardeen, and Brittain at Bell Labs, they invented what is known as a point contact transistor. So this was the first device to show transistor-like action, and Shockley, Bardeen, and Brittain got a Nobel Prize in 1956 for this invention. So this is a replica of a point contact transistor. You can see it is relatively large device, which is now in a museum. And in the next 50 to 70 years, essentially, these transistors were integrated on a single chip. And then the number of transistors started increasing, so much so that today we have the Pentiums and the Xeon processors, which are essentially only about a couple of square inches in size, but they contain a few billion transistors. The computational capability has increased enormously, and also the cost has reduced. So this is why we see semiconductors everywhere, and the modern technological revolution has been possible. And to give you an essence of how this was possible, there is a chart here. On the y-axis, we see the number of calculations that are possible in a computer per second and per $1,000. On the x-axis, we see the time, so over the years. So if you look at it in the graph, in 1940s and 50s, only about 1 or 2 calculations were possible per second per $1,000. So this means that the computational capability was very small and the cost of computation also was very large. Over the next 70 years, there has been an exponential increase in the number of calculations possible. And at the same time, the cost per computation has reduced. And that is why our chips are so cheap that we can put it into mobile phones and sell them in billions and billions of devices. So this phenomenal growth in the semiconductors has been captured famously by Gordon Moore, who was a chairman of Intel in the year 1965 or so. He predicted that the number of transistors on an integrated circuit would essentially double every 2 years. And semiconductor industry sort of took this as a holy grail and they started racing against this goal. And they have been largely successful. And that is the story of our semiconductor devices. So what we want to do in this course is to give you a glimpse of how these devices work so that we understand a little bit of what is happening around us. So what we will do is we will first start with understanding the basics of semiconductors. So essentially we'll talk about bands and how the carriers are formed in this, what are N-type carriers, P-type carriers, and Fermi level and so on. We'll discuss that for about 3 weeks. And then we'll move to one of the simplest semiconductor device possible, which is a PN junction. If you understand PN junction well, we can understand almost all other devices. So we will deal with the electrostatics of PN junction and then of course how the current flows in a PN junction. We'll talk about that for about 2 weeks. And then we will move to what is known as a MOS capacitor device. A MOS capacitor is simply a parallel plate capacitor. You could think of it like a parallel plate capacitor consisting of metal as one of the plate and the semiconductor as the other plate, separated by an insulator. So a MOS capacitor is a crucial component of a modern MOSFET. So we'd like to understand in detail how a MOS capacitor works. We will do that for about 2 weeks. And then we will talk about MOSFETs themselves. So which are essentially, we have what is called as long channel MOSFETs and the short channel MOSFETs. We'll talk about the IDVGs, IDVDs, and all that. We'll also talk a little bit about short channel effects. So we will give you a glimpse of what is there in the most modern semiconductor chip that is coming out of the factories this year. So finally, in the last 2 weeks, we'll also touch upon a class of devices which are known as optoelectronic devices. So if you see today, we have LED bulbs in our homes. We have solar cells on our rooftops. So how do these devices work? How are they able to produce light in the case of LEDs? And how is the solar cell able to convert light into electricity? So we will understand that. We will spend a little bit of time on that. And with that, we would have covered a broad spectrum of semiconductor devices with emphasis on fundamental principles. So the books we will use in this course are essentially two. I'll pick up a lot of concepts from Semiconductor Device Fundamentals by R.F. Pierre, and I'll also pick up some elements from Semiconductor Physics and Devices by Donald Lehman. These are essentially reference books. There are a lot of other books as well, like Streetman and so on. So for the purposes of this course, we will try to put as much material as required in the slides and the notes we are supplying, so that you can, if you want additional information, you could go to these books and you can learn more. And finally, for whom is this course useful? So the target audience is essentially consisting of undergraduate students who are interested in learning about semiconductor devices, be it as part of their undergraduate curriculum, be it in BTech or a BSc or an MSc program. So electronic devices will be very broadly covered. And it will also be useful for the students who are interested in taking the GATE examination in EC or EE branches. And of course, this will also be useful for faculty who are actually teaching these courses in various colleges. So it will also give them a depth in understanding. And last but not least, I'll assume that you have math and physics at a 10+2 level. I will not really assume any other prerequisites. I'll try to develop the necessary content from the basics. So with that, I would like to welcome you once again to this course on semiconductor devices. And I hope that you'll have a great time learning these devices. I really find it very fascinating and I enjoy it every time I offer it. And I hope you will also share my enthusiasm for semiconductor devices after this course. Thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you in the later modules. Have a good day.